Hello, neighbor. I'm Robert Burns, and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. This is episode 5 of the C.J. Matthews features. He's a candidate for sheriff in Ascension Parish, and everyone may recall we had to do a little bit of a interruption, a sidebar, if you will, and I'm just going to follow up very briefly on that. I hope to cram it into about a minute. I think the evidence is becoming overwhelming that Sheriff Weber did not graduate from high school. To me, that's not a major point. However, I have 3 bases upon which I make that statement. Number 1, we emailed the Weber camp and we said email us a photocopy of that diploma, and as you've already known, we've said we would put it up on prominent display and Mr. Matthews would deal with it. That's number 1. Point number 2, of the tens of thousands of hits, and I am not exaggerating, of the tens of thousands of hits that have come to these features, I find it almost impossible to believe that at least one or more members of the class of '82 of Ascension High School did not see it, and if so, that they would then say, hey, just a minute, he did graduate with us. We've gotten no such correspondence whatsoever. And then thirdly, I believe that if that was the case, Mr. P.T., the publisher of the Pelican Post, would come to his own defense and saying, I published that he graduated. He most certainly did graduate. We've received no such correspondence from him. And so with that, we are going to conclude the whole matter of whether or not he graduated. However, the offer remains open. It never expires. If you want to produce that diploma, we will put it on prominent display. Now, I want to move on today because I believe of all the documents we have submitted, hear what I'm about to say. All of the documents we have submitted, if you have not looked at a single document, I urge you to, and many of you have looked at the documents, but I urge you to click on this document that we're about to present right here that Mr. Matthews is going to elaborate upon. And it's a good thing he's doing it because I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I could keep my cool. I'm just being blunt about it. But I want to emphasize 2 quick things real quick. Number 1, I want everyone to remember, I've said it many, many times, the Attorney General's office had closed this investigation on October the 31st, 2018. As Mr. Matthews has said, they said it had no merit, okay? Now, here we are, and I really want to drive this point home. Here we are mid-January of 2019, and what's going on is Bobby Weber is both politely showing, maybe not so politely, showing Mr. Matthews the exit door, although he characterizes it as a resignation when it is clearly a termination. But simultaneously, folks, not some gap in between, I'm talking about simultaneously. He's buttering up to Jeff Landry with a letter we've already shown you saying, hey, look, we will work with y'all. Y'all have excellent prosecutorial skills. We will provide every access, every resource available. I would submit if he really meant that, he would have had as his point man, the gentleman that you're looking at in this camera, the one who knew the most about it. Instead, he's showing him the exit door. Now, I may not be able to resist chiming in when he makes a few points in this document because they are damning. This is the most, if you looked at no other document, please click on this document and read it. Mr. Matthews, you take over.
Okay, thank you, Robert. On January 31st, 2019 is when the Louisiana Department of Justice, Attorney General's office, opened their investigation. It was assigned to a Special Agent Thomas Stubbs, and I have his first report, which is dated 2/12 of 2019. And basically, in this report, Mr. Stubbs rehashes everything that we've already known. He spoke to the female victim, and just basically in his report, she once again corroborates everything that was in the other reports that, you know, he asked her numerous times for oral sex while he was asking her to lunch and to give her a ride home.
Yeah, she gets very specific on some of the things that he asked for, and we'll bring them out in the body of the text, but you...
And I think Mr. Stubbs probably, he did a better investigation.
Okay.
Although I think he may have been hamstrung at the end. All the messages that were sent back and forth, she stated that Corder texted her numerous times and asked her for pictures of her buttocks and vagina.
Yes, I remember that vividly.
Okay, let's see.
Can you imagine that, folks? This is a school resource officer that she is saying wanted her to send pictures of her buttocks and her vagina. Did I not tell you this was going to be some stunning stuff? Continue, Mr. Smith.
Absolutely. So, S.A. Stubbs concludes that interview with her, and he had met her at a location in Donaldsonville. So then he says, you know, he wraps up his first report, this matter is still under investigation. Now that's 2/12 of 19.
Yes.
What the public needs to know is there's a sheriff's election that year, okay, which is going to be in the fall.
Correct.
So in February of 19, S.A. Stubbs concludes one of his reports.
Okay.
Now, and I can't believe that the Attorney General's office is that busy with cases. And as a former investigator, I do understand that at some points when you get to a dead end, you take that case and you have to sit it down on the side, and either you're waiting for results to come back from the lab,
right,
or you're waiting for another witness or victim to come in for an interview, things of that nature. I get that, but his next report reflects not till September 6th.
So how long ago? Because you're catching on exactly what I want to drill on. How big of a gap are we talking?
You're looking at what, 7 months?
Yes, 7 months, folks. 7 months, 210 days approximately.
So in his final report, he rehashes the information that they got through the forensic analysis of Corder's phone, which I'll quote his report. Over the next few weeks, 2/28/18 through 3/20 of 18, Corder and the victim exchanged 68 voice calls and 743 SMS messages. According to the victim, the conversations between her and Corder were sexual in nature, including text messages from Corder where he asked her for sexual favors, as well as naked pictures.
Yes.
Now, when they did the sting on Mr. Corder, and this is once again in S.A. Stubbs' report, detectives discovered that Corder selectively erased all correspondence between himself and the victim and denied any type of indecent behavior with the victim. At this point, I believe a search warrant should be sought to retrieve the erased data on Corder's phone, but it was not, and the phone was returned to Corder without further examination. Why in the hell would you do that?
Exactly.
As a seasoned investigator, you don't give it back. You're going to hold on to it until forever if necessary.
Yes.
Okay. Why did they not do a search warrant and get that information? Here's my answer to it. Because once again, they're slow rolling everything. They're sweeping it under the rug. They don't want it.
Right. I think that's the bottom line. I'm going to interject just briefly because I want you to really hammer all this home. Every turn, it seems to be every single turn that happens in this whole episode, everybody's looking for a means to let the perpetrator out. Give him an out.
Yes.
And obviously you concur with those sentiments. And I'm talking about from the outset of it, from the botch sting, all the way through, have a little powwow with the AG's office. Oh, there's no merit here. And I don't know why they reopened it. My guess is because somebody probably dropped a dime that you'd go into the FBI with this, and they said, oh my God, you know.
Actually, it was the fact that, and this is all my opinion.
Sure.
It was the fact that Wiley had set that meeting for me with the DA's office, the 23rd Judicial District Attorney's office, and my attorney said, okay, we'll be there at 10, and they said, oh, no, you can't come with him. And she said, well, wait a minute. So then we brought forth some more improprieties in a different case, at which point Ricky Babin said, hey, I got to recuse myself from this, in which he did. And you got to keep in account here, ladies and gentlemen, that David Mitchell with the Advocate did a story on this, and he also spoke to the Attorney General's office, what about this case? And that's when they said, we're going to rekindle our investigation. So having said that, they've got to do something.
Exactly. An excellent point. and I could cite another case, I won't, because I want you to hold this whole thing. That's not the first, I'll just say this, that's not the first time Jeff Landry's office has opened something up, and I can tell you firsthand on experience, he closed it literally once the camera crew was gone. And I'll put a link for that. I don't want to even mention that other than say it exists. I'm going to provide links for it, so anybody who wants to go and take a look at that can feel free to do so. But this will not be setting a precedent, because I believe you're correct. That's exactly what happened. There's media coverage. We can't. Well, we closed that. Well, there was nothing. So I think your point's well taken. That's what rekindled the investigation. And we know Mr. Weber was saying what? Oh, this will probably be about a week in the newspaper.
That's right. Oh, this is just going to be about a week.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now, Mr. Stubbs, furthering on in his report, it's basically, he states, I located the picture that was identified by the victim depicting her breast. Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, these photos were taken off Fred Corder's phone. They were when they forensically analyzed his phone, they pulled these photos off of there, and according to Kelly Brown's report, which is probably, well, I'll reserve my judgment on that. But he did say that she picked out one of the photos as being of her breast.
Yes.
Now, that is enough. Okay. According to Louisiana revised statutes, a 40-something-year-old man, notwithstanding the fact that he's a law enforcement officer and a school resource officer,
Yes.
notwithstanding the fact that he had sent her numerous texts, according to S.A. Tubbs' report and also Kelly Brown's own report, that he had sent her text messages, I want sex, I want oral sex, send me nude pictures, and they just sweep it under the rug.
Yes.
So, Mr. Stubbs, further in his report, ISA Stubbs located 2 pictures that appeared to belong to whoever sent the breast picture to Corder, that the victim identified as hers. Now, Mr. Stubbs is actually doing some police work.
Okay.
It was apparent that all 3 pictures came from the same person because of similar body features, background, and similar recorded timestamps of 4/15/2018 and 4/17/2018, indicating that they were sent 2 days apart. Now, let's not get wrapped around the axle because the time date stamp was off. You can change that on your phone. Okay,
Sure.
Maybe it was never set. Either way, regardless of that, you've got this information. I identified that photograph as being one of my breasts, according to the victim.
Yes.
Now, the picture that the victim identified as hers did not show her face. That showed a female's naked body from the neck to the center of her stomach, standing in front of a mirror. The picture showed 2 moles in an area on her chest that the victim identified as hers as well. The second photo, so there was a total of 3 photos, and I alluded to this in the first installment, I believe.
Yeah.
The second photo showed a female with a similar body type lying on a couch while nude. It did not show her face, but you could see the 2 moles like in the original picture that the victim identified as her breast. Now, further, it's my understanding that this was a full frontal nude picture. The third picture was of a female's exposed buttocks. In the background of the third picture, you could see bathroom tiles on the wall behind the victim. Now, what he is stating is that the bathroom tiles that was in the first picture that she took of her breast and identified as hers were the same or similar to the bathroom tiles in the mirror picture of her buttocks.
Wow.
Okay. Now, he goes on into he could not establish validity of the timestamp. Let's see.
It's a fairly exhaustive report. That's why I want to encourage everyone to click on it and read it.
Right. So now that this began in the end of May of 2018.
Right.
Now we're into September of 2019.
Correct.
Okay. Why it took so long between the first one and the second one, I have no idea. Okay. Now, here is the crazy part.
All right.
I got a letter dated November 4, 2019. Now, of course, everything's blacked out. case number, all that kind of stuff. Apparently, it was written and sent by a guy named Matthew Derbies, who's a deputy director of the criminal division of the Office of Attorney General Jeff Landry, blah, 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 blah. Now, this is getting pretty close to the election.
Yes.
Our office is reviewing the investigative file for possible charges against Fred Corder. It is imperative we speak to you as your cooperation is necessary to proceed under the facts of the case. We cannot go forward without your assistance. Multiple attempts have been made to get in touch with you to no avail. If we fail to hear from you within 10 days, we'll be forced to assume that you will not cooperate and have to close this case. Here's my question, ladies and gentlemen. Why do they need a cooperation?
That's a good question, given the, avalanche of material they
You
have.
put the deputy who took the report on the stand. You put Kelly Brown on the stand. I took the statement from her. This is her statement. Then you go right into the sting operation. And I'm not a prosecutor, ladies and gentlemen, but I've been a cop for 30 years, and I've been on the stand maybe once or twice. After the sting operation, when they go pick him up and they get his phone and they write a search warrant for his phone and they get everything out of his phone, at that point, her cooperation, other than her identifying the fact to Kelly Brown that that's my boobs, it's immaterial.
Right.
Okay? And if the DA or whoever prosecuted this case and took it to court without the victim, a defense attorney would be, I don't know, I guess he would be opening up a chance for an appeal by giving his, do you think they would subpoena the victim and put her on the stand? I don't think so.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was somewhere in there, I'm sorry, I don't remember the time, but they contacted, she said, I don't want anything. Yeah, I let it all on.
But that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he writes her this letter. Now,
Go ahead, yeah.
As a investigator seeing this letter, my thought is this: they're going to charge him.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is right before a sheriff's election.
Okay.
Okay. Now we'll go back to the case closing memo dated 11/19 of 2019, and you can do the research on that and find out when the election was held. Okay. That year, 2019. Okay. S.A. Stubbs drove out to the victim's residence. We knocked on the door and spoke to her mother-in-law, who indicated she provided the contact letter to the victim. We were also able to obtain a cell number from the victim. Stubbs called and texted the number, identifying himself and the reason we were trying to locate her. And this is what he says. She texted back, I don't want nothing to do with it anymore.
That.
Now, here's my question, ladies and gentlemen. In good conscience, as an investigator, I could not close a case getting a text from God knows who, from a number that I did not know was hers,
Mm-hmm.
stating, I don't want nothing else to do with the case.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it. And furthermore, I reiterate, just like I said earlier, they didn't need her cooperation at this point.
Well, and furthermore, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but even if that is a legitimate text coming from her, do you figure maybe that almost 2 years going by, she may have said, ain't nothing gonna happen from this, and been reluctant to reach out? And I think that all goes to how long this is dragged out and the avenues that were provided to the perpetrator to get off. That's just one other alternate theory, because
Absolutely. She was pregnant when she went in and filed the original report. Now she's had a child,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a young mother, first-time mother, as far as I know,
Mm-hmm.
with a probably 8, 10, 12-month-old.
Yeah.
Okay, and now this much time has elapsed.
A lot of
now
time.
you're wanting to
Yeah, a lot of time.
to get involved in the case. And once again, it just dumbfounds me how the fact that they just can so easily, and I would say, I'm like, we're going to charge them, and we'll send you subpoenas, and if you don't show up, we'll come get you, and we'll bring you.
I got you.
And then you're going to have to stand up in front of the judge and say, I don't want to do anything, Judge.
Yeah, I understand
That's
where
the
you
way.
go.
That's the way, and that way, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this today. You know, and there's no way that anybody involved in this case could say, hey, look, I tried to do everything that I could. I did my due diligence, which I don't believe they did. Okay. Besides this, do you generally let a juvenile victim of sex crimes decide if the case is prosecuted or not? I'm just asking, you know, ladies and gentlemen out there in TV land or YouTube land or LA sound off land, that's not the way that happens. That's not the way that works. If that was the case, they would never try a juvenile case. They would never do it because the juvenile has probably been abused for so long, and you know, that is just bad business.
Correct.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Well, and I want to make a couple of semi-concluding remarks. I want you to finish it, obviously, but as I said in the last feature, I'm not a registered voter in Ascension Parish. I'm a registered voter in East Baton Rouge Parish. But given everything you have shown to me, if I did reside in Ascension Parish, I can tell you that I would view Bobby Weber in disgrace, the same for Jeff Wiley, and under no circumstances would I want Jeff Wiley representing me in, now this is strictly Robert Burns, all right? Under no circumstances would I want Jeff Wiley. I don't even know who his opponent is. I just know I don't want him representing me in the the legislature, state representative. I know he's been endorsed by lobby, and I know that's a powerful organization. It wouldn't matter to me. And of Bobby Weber, given everything that's been shown here, and the least of which is not graduating from high school, the constant participation in what, in my opinion, is flat out a cover-up and flat out a means to let a colleague off the hook. We've already talked about how much it happens in Livingston Parish. I don't know whether either Jason Ard, well, Scott Perlow's not seeking re-election, so, but I don't know if there'll be fallout from that. In my opinion, there should be. But I get to editorialize a bit because this is Sound Off Louisiana, and you have that right. It's one thing that distinguishes it from the mainstream media. In my assessment, if Ascension Parish voters vote to re-elect Bobby Weber, then you've seen the facts. You get what is there, and I don't think it's a very pretty sight.
Not only that, Robert, this is just one case.
Yeah.
There was another case involving a city police officer, which I put on my Facebook page, CJ Matthews for Ascension Sheriff, if you would like to go read that. So basically what I've done is basically discovered, and I'm showing you there's a pattern. Plus, once again, Bobby doesn't understand this, but I've got deputies every day talking to me. This is not a once in a lifetime deal. This occurs more often than not. This is just what I know about, ladies and gentlemen.
Correct.
And this is what I've been able to sink my teeth in and dig and prove.
Correct.
Okay. So, and you know, I don't know how much tape you got there, Rob, but we could sit here and talk all day, and I could tell you about a whole lot of things from the almost the first year of my employment at the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office. Things that were definitely questionable, and I don't have all the facts on them, but I do have enough facts on a lot of things that make people scratch their head and say, wait a minute.
Well, and I know you said you were blocked, but in going to the Weber campaign's Facebook page, it looks like he's really good at going around to one event after another. I don't know how he can possibly be spending much time in the sheriff's office, and that to me does not speak to how well you do the job. Any politician can go and glad hand rather, and put their face out there. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who is going to prosecute and who is not going to have a different set of rules when it involves someone in his own office. Those are my thoughts. I'll let you wrap it up because I want to let everybody know we got one more episode. We're not done. Go ahead, Mr. Matthews.
Exactly. and I thank you for giving me this few extra minutes. I want the public to know that I will never be, I'm a cop. I'm not a politician, okay? You're not gonna see me out there doing the stuff that Bobby's doing. You haven't seen me out there doing that kind of stuff in my campaigns. Yes, I've had a couple of meet and greets, absolutely. But I am not, at every event that happens, I'm not out there, okay? That's, you know, that's just not the person that I am, and that's not the sheriff that I'm gonna be. What I want you to know is that I am gonna wear the same uniform that those men and women that drive those MORT units wear. I'm going to wear the same body armor that they wear, whether it's hot or whether it's cold. I'm going to feel their pain. I am going to be out there on the streets, ladies and gentlemen. So you better be careful. If I get elected, I might be the one that's stopping you and writing you a ticket. I might be out there working the wreck. Okay, I might be taking your complaint. That's the kind of sheriff I'm going to be. And some people say, oh, well, if you're doing all that, you can't run the sheriff's office. Because Bobby Weber can't, and because Jeff Wiley couldn't, doesn't mean CJ Matthews can't. I was a working supervisor in narcotics. I worked just as many, if not more cases than my guys did. And I did everything else administratively. So yes, it can be done.
All right, well, I think that's a resounding way to close this one out. And I want to let everyone know we are not done. Although I do think the document you just saw is the most damning of all. But our next feature, which will be episode 6, Mr. Matthews didn't stop even then. He has most recently been to Louisiana State Police.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And look, there's one thing I don't think any of our subscribers, our casual site viewers are going to say. They're going to readily admit Robert Burns is likely the Bible authority on state police. And I will concur with that. I'm not bragging. I never sought out to do that, but that's what this blog has largely become, a state police blog that just covers other matters from time to time. The blog went where the direction led. And you do not want to miss, although maybe there won't be much shock value because quite frankly, it's typical Louisiana State Police. And I'm not being flippant, I mean that. But we are going to wrap this up with episode 6, and I think you're going to be stunned at the dialogue that this gentleman gets from Louisiana State Police. And that will be the focus of episode 6. Thank you once again, Mr. Matthews, and I know everyone looks forward to seeing you for episode 6.
Thank you, Rob.
You're quite welcome.